As we prepare to watch Man City versus Chelsea for the third consecutive time, we're here to preview the action. We discuss what we've learnt about the two sides in the previous two matches. We also evaluate the importance of this fixture to both sides in the context of their respective seasons. This is our Man City versus Chelsea preview. Alright, take 3 then as we see Man City versus Chelsea. Again, it's our 5th video in 7 days covering these two teams. So, Harry, it feels like we're running out of things to say, but we do have context now from the other two games. I think that's a good place to start. We've seen the League Cup final, we've seen the Champions League first leg. Chelsea won the League Cup, City won the first leg. So a bit of difference there.
Yeah, it is a bit of difference. I think that honestly we knew this scenario would be very bizarre when we had the fixtures come out, but I think the results have slightly changed the scenario that we going into this league match this weekend. When people looked at the run of 4, especially once Gareth Taylor had been sacked, it was very much, okay, Chelsea will probably win the other 3 games and City will win the league game if they are to win any game. And that was the way people looked at it. But Man City and Nick Cushing have thrown a curveball into all those predictions by beating Chelsea pretty dominantly on Wednesday night in the Champions League. That makes this game very, very different because this has gone from City, from Chelsea just, kind of just throwing away the WSL game or not prioritising it to focus on the Champions League. But now they're 2 goals down and now City are 2-0 up. It changes their priorities as well. Man City, I think, especially with the 11 they put out on Wednesday, you could tell that the Champions League potentially wasn't the priority, but they got a brilliant result. So now, what do? Will they rest this Sunday or will they target Thursday?
Well, there was that change at half-time, wasn't there, for City? I think at that point, Cushing realised the game was there for the taking. He brought on Viviana Miedema to lead the line, and I think that ignited the change for City in the second half, which they believed they could go on and win the game. I think Chelsea contributed to that by switching to a single pivot, which that build-up already wasn't working. It worked even less once they went to a single pivot, and they weren't as clinical as City. City took all their chances. Chelsea didn't take any of theirs, so it was one of those games, but City took advantage of them there. I think it makes this game on Sunday much more interesting. I'd have been going into this weekend. In fact, I thought I'd be going into this run bored of watching Chelsea Man City by now. But I think now this Sunday's game, and especially next Thursday's game, are really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that, as you say, it puts it into a weird position because both sides have now realistically will want to focus on that Champions League game. Man City have got a very good chance of getting through to the semi-finals, and Chelsea have got a mammoth task to pull off at the bridge.
Yeah.
But the problem is that this WSL game isn't just a free hit for both sides. For Chelsea, they've got a bit of a buffer. Being 8 points clear at the top of the table means that if they do lose to City, they still remain 5 clear, which is, I think, Bombastor will be fine with. But for City, they have to win. They're still pushing for this top 3. And they need to be in one of those top 3 places come the end of the season. They've got a big opportunity. Arsenal have got a tough game against Liverpool. Man United play, I think Leicester, I want to say, but over Aston Villa. But it's one of those where City, it's a big game this weekend. If they win that, they put themselves in a really, really good position, especially if the other sides drop points. But it's one of those. City need to win to get into the top 3. Chelsea, they'll want to, now they've lost their unbeaten run, they'll want to still remain unbeaten in the league. And I think it is. I think the result on Wednesday has put a lot more pressure and a lot more priority onto this game for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, as you say there, I think it's a weekend where Arsenal could drop points to Liverpool, a very good Liverpool side at the moment. I think Villa have the ability on their day to take points off Manchester United, so City winning could put them in a decent position. However, on the flip side, if they lose that game, they could find themselves 7 points off both Arsenal and Man United. And I think that's why this Sunday has to be the important one for Man City. They have to play full strength, and that does hinder them slightly going into next Thursday. But I think they've got to play full strength on Sunday. They have to win that game if they want any chance of getting Champions League football next season. Because I think, yes, a Champions League semi-final run is nice for City if they can beat Chelsea over 2 legs in the Champions League. But ultimately, I don't think City are at a point where they're going to go and win the competition. And they have to have Champions League football next season. It's a necessity for Manchester City. We saw players like Caroline join in January because of the Champions League football, because that allure of Champions League football. If they don't have that next season, that severely hinders their ability to recruit players at a high calibre in the summer. I think this summer they'll be looking at, potentially Eula Brands. They're going to have other top targets that are in that sort of category of players. And if they don't have Champions League football, those players become unattainable for City.
Yeah.
And so you hand a huge advantage to United, Arsenal and Chelsea, who can go out and sign those players. And when Chelsea are sniffing around Sophia Wilson and Trinity Rodman, and City would be in a position where they can't get Champions League football, suddenly there's a huge disparity in who they can recruit and who the top sides can recruit.
Yeah.
So for City, the priority has to be winning this game on Sunday. They have to keep the points ticking over in the WSL and hope for United slip up later in the season, because at the moment, I think they'll be in trouble going into this summer. I think in a period where they've sacked Gav Taylor, they're clearly looking to do a rebuild. I'm not sure whether Nick Cushing is the long-term solution, but he's doing a very good job now. If they're looking at this rebuild process to take them to the top of the WSL, they can't kick off that process by not qualifying for the Champions League. It's why they brought Cushing in, to get that result. So Sunday's got to be the priority for Man City. And I think that they will play their full-strength side. Now, how that impacts on next Thursday's game remains to be seen. Because I think if you've played your same, it'll be probably the same team, or most of the same team, that's played the League Cup final, the Champions League quarter-final first leg, and then the WSL game. Now, the fatigue could be an element then next Thursday, but I think City have to take that punt and have to focus on this WSL game on Sunday. But I don't think Chelsea will make it easy for them. I think it will be a bit of a rotated side for Chelsea. I think we could see players who perhaps haven't got a whole host of minutes this season. I imagine Ashley Lawrence will play, possibly Melis and Pomey. I think we'll probably see players like Vic Captain. Is Jean-Francois fit?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably Orange Jean-Francois then. Players like that I think will come in for this Chelsea side. I'd love to see Lola Brown as well. But it'll be interesting to see how rotated Chelsea go, because they've got to balance it with the fact they'll want to respond with a victory after Wednesday's result, but also they've got to prioritise next Thursday.
Well, that's the thing. Chelsea have been a bit of a weird spot where I don't really know how much rotation we're going to see, because you've got players like Micah Hamano, who's been sensational for Chelsea. She hasn't started either of the League Cup final or the first leg. And whether that is purposeful from Bonpastor, whether she whether they've slightly rested and gone a little bit weaker in terms of in the opening two games, and they're going to play the stronger sides in these last two games, it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, it's just we saw Aggie Beaver-Jones coming for Carnegie in the first leg. I think Chelsea have shuffled the pack nicely. You've still got players like Niamh Charles didn't feature on Wednesday. I said Hamano, Carnegie didn't. All of those didn't feature. Nuskin only came on with like half an hour to go. So there's a lot of key players there that didn't feature Wednesday. And I think that was in Bonpastor's planning, was rotate in the first leg and hope to get a result. The problem is they didn't get a result. They got lost pretty badly for a two-legged tie. So for Chelsea, I think that potentially Bonpastor's been smart with it, and they've saved themselves to go hell for leather in these last two games. As you say for Man City, I think there are going to be big problems, because obviously they can't help it, but Alexandria and Gracie Pryor combined are going to end up playing 360 minutes against Chelsea over the space of a week and a half. So by the time they get to that second leg, they could be done and dusted. They could be absolutely knackered. But which is why I think this weekend they just have to put everything into it. Give everything in this match on Sunday. Get a huge win in the league. And then if you're too tired and it isn't possible to stop Chelsea on Thursday, then so be it. But getting a win on Sunday is absolutely crucial. They're at home as well, whereas in the second leg they're away, so they're already up against it in that second leg, whereas they've got the home advantage in this league game.
They've got that 2-0 victory, and that's what City have got to remember. If they can just hold on to that, they're through to the semi-finals. Sunday, therefore, has to be the focus, then look to see what they get next Thursday. You never know, so Alex Greenwood may be back in order to play at least 30 minutes in that quarter-final second leg. So we'll see what happens there. It looks touch and go. The fact she's not been in any squads yet would suggest we're not going to see her, but they've always said end of March was the goal. If there's a chance she's back for that second leg, I think either way they've have to keep playing the same defenders. Yeah. On the flip side as well, there was a marked improvement in how Alexandria and Pryor performed in the League Cup, from the League Cup final to the Champions League first leg. So who says it doesn't happen again? Yeah. But Gracie Pryor especially looked phenomenal in both games. I think Alexandria a lot more comfortable in the second leg. I think pitch size and the occasion probably helped Man City at the Joey. I think at times, if you look at what Chelsea did against City really effectively at Pride Park, it was isolating Alexandria. But the pitch at Joey is slightly smaller, and it does feel smaller because of the size of the stands and stuff like that. So I think Chelsea did struggle with that slightly. And I know they play at Kings Meadow, but we've seen the better performances for Chelsea this season have come at Stamford Bridge, have come on the bigger stages.
Yeah, it's a factor, I think. Whether it's major or minimal, it'd be interesting to see. But it's one of those where I think that Chelsea, they have to find something. They're going to have to mix it up in these last two games, but especially in this game on Sunday, they have to. That's the thing for Chelsea, is that they want to rest, and it might not be an A-star performance, But if they do end up losing again, and it's back-to-back losses to Man City, then suddenly there's a lot of negativity going into that second leg on Thursday. So I think that Bombastor will want to win this game, and they'll want to remain invincible in the WSL. They'll want to keep their 8-point gap clear of Arsenal and Manchester United, because you do not want to give any of those sides a sniff at the moment. So I think there will be Chelsea will very much want to win. They'll want to play better. They have to play better. It's as simple as that. If they play the same way they did in the midweek, then they will lose again. And if it is a stronger City side, if Shaw and Firmino are getting back, then it could be even worse. So Chelsea are going to have to improve massively. But as you say, can Chelsea start, in that League Cup? They weren't brilliant, but they still caused City problems. If they can start to do that again, then again it will look more positive. But Cushing has done really well so far. He's done well to get the better of Bompastor, which is something no other manager has done this season. So credit to him. And Man City proving that they can compete with Chelsea.
There's been quite a few changes from Taylor's reign to Cushing's reign. I think now City are a much better out of possession side. They are pressing more effectively. They have a rest defence structure, which is helpful. They didn't have that under Gareth Taylor. And so I think in that regard that, they're able to control games that way because, or at least they're able to defend well and then use the ball when they've got the ball rather than try and dictate possession, lose it in vulnerable areas because your focus is on trying to make as many passes as possible and not on ball progression. But I think when City have the ball, there's purpose to it, there's meaning to it. They only had 41% possession on Wednesday's game, but they still won that match 2-0. And that, for me, it's a huge difference from when Gareth Taylor was in charge, because in the game between Chelsea and City in November, it was something like 69 to 31% in favour of Man City. Chelsea won that game 2-0. And I think that's why they made the change from Taylor to Cushing, as unjust as it may be. And, Taylor deserved the chance, at least for the final. I think there has been a difference in the way that City play, and that's made life really difficult for Chelsea. So I think Cushing's come in and done well there. I also think there's been a difference and a shift in mentality and in expectations from Taylor to Cushing. I think Taylor's very soft in terms of his man management, I would say. I wouldn't call it cowardly, but it's more, he sits up in the stands. He doesn't really shout at his players an awful lot. When he wants to drop someone, it's very much like, let's have a conversation about it. I think Cushing's clearly made the standard well known to the players, raised those expectations to the players, and we've seen that. He's on the sidelines barking orders, demanding more from his players. And even when they lost that League Cup final, he wasn't satisfied with the fact they played well in that game because he knew they could have won it. And so immediately, when you go there and you go, that was a good performance, but it wasn't enough. We lost that game. I think it set the standard for the game on Wednesday night, and City came out and they wanted it more.
Yeah, it's that emotion factor, and obviously, Gareth Taylor doesn't have to be roaring his emotions out, and
there's different management styles work for different things.
I think that, I understand Gareth Taylor wants to manage that way, but I think for a top side, you need to have that emotion in it. You need to have that winning mentality. That you showing that emotion from Cushing, you can clearly tell that it means a lot to him that Man City do win something, and when they failed to win the League Cup, he was very frustrated. But then again, you see it on the flip side when they do beat Chelsea in that first leg. He's absolutely brilliant, with it, but to a certain extent, because he still knows the job isn't done, and that's what I like. It's very much, it's business-like, it's classy. It's what we've got used to seeing with the likes of Bompastor. Is that they when Chelsea, you see it, it's a great example when Chelsea won the League Cup. It's like, they've won the League Cup, credit to them. We've done well, won a trophy, but it's straight back to business as usual. And it's the same with Sim from Nick Cushing. You lost the League Cup final, that's fine. We'll bounce back in the first leg of the Champions League. We win the first leg of the Champions League, cool, don't care, job's not done. We've got to go win the game on Sunday.
Well, I think that is the difference from that Saturday game. I think the difference would have been Cushing says there's no parties. It's not till 9 p.m. There's no parties. We're halfway through a season. We'll celebrate at the end of the campaign. But I also think you made a point there saying that City as a top side need a manager like that. I'd argue it's actually the opposite in the sense that City aren't a top side. So to compete, in fact, they're not an elite team. So to compete, they need a manager who's going to get those players up. If you're Barcelona, then you could have a manager there who brings in a tactical style, but then gives the players that freedom and that trust. And I think players of that calibre will thrive on that.
Yeah.
And so, you've only got to look around Madrid in the men's game as an example. Carlo Ancelotti is a very reserved manager on the sidelines. He lets his players do the talking for him. And because he gives those players that trust and those leadership roles, they do well. And I think at a club like Barcelona or Lyon, that could work. But at City, where they're trying to punch above their weight, I'd say, by trying to get to the Champions League semi-finals, you need a manager there who's going to get your players up for
Yeah.
it, who's going to give them that extra 10%. And I think Cushing's done that over the 2 games that we've seen. I think he's given a really good account of himself so far. So, yeah, it looks really positive for Man City. I think now that both teams have taken a game each, it's going to be really interesting who takes the game on Sunday. I think City will want it more, but I think Chelsea will want revenge. So it's difficult, therefore, to balance it in my head. I think Chelsea's focus will be on next Thursday. They know their position is strong in the league, but equally, they don't want to lose a game in the league this season.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see how those two ideals clash. If you were going to predict the game now, a loose prediction, because obviously you'll give your prediction on the live stream. What would be your loose prediction?
I think as you say, City may look stronger and will have that extra desire to go and win the league game, because it means the 3 points will mean more to them than it does to Chelsea. But if we know Bonpastor, if Chelsea have found a way, the problem for Chelsea was that in possession with the ball they were absolutely shocking. It was really sloppy, and that was partly caused by by Manchester City's press, but also partly caused by Chelsea just messing around and making stupid decisions. So if Bonpastor and Chelsea have found a way to deal with that City press, then it's going to get very interesting, because then that's going to put the pressure right back onto Cushing to come up with something new. So if Bonpastor's worked out something, a tactical change, then Chelsea will probably reap the rewards. Whether she's done that in 4 days, I don't know. I think right now, I would say it's going to be close. I would say a draw, but I could see it could be an individual moment of quality that wins the game for either side.
Yeah, I'd also say a draw. I think I'll give a prediction because I won't be here on Sunday. I will say 2-2.
Yeah.
I think it will be a fairly even one, but I think both sides will score goals. I think it'll just be quite open at times, like the Women's League Cup finals. I think it'll be a bit like that. So, yeah, we will see. On that, though, do join Harry on Sunday for the El Clasico at 11 o'clock to start, and then at 2:30, this Man City versus Chelsea game, the third meeting between the two sides. And then, obviously, next week, Champions League quarter-final, second leg, we will be at the game. So if you're going to watch Man City Chelsea and you spot us, come say hi. We will be, hopefully, celebrating after the game. But yes, that is everything for today's video. Harry will be live on Sunday. Join in there. If you haven't yet checked out our Champions League review from yesterday, then go and check that out. That'll be on the screen now. That's everything from us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.